So in the last 30 days, we've launched over 100 different ads for a couple of our new clients through a new creative structure that we've just rolled out for a lot of our new clients. Now, this is something we're actually looking to spread across the board, but in this video, I'll walk through how we're setting it up, what are the inputs we're focusing on, and what are the results we're actually seeing on these new clients. So our creative structure and creative testing methodology has changed a lot in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 months, and majority of it comes from actually focusing on the inputs and the outputs. So the inputs essentially is, or let's start with the outputs. The outputs essentially is, okay, cool, we want to grow our top line revenue and we want to grow profitably. Then the second thing comes into, we want to figure out how many winning ads we can essentially get from our input, which is the amount of ads that we actually launch. Slightly harder to figure out in terms of a number and like a win ratio, but essentially the structure we ended up coming to was the structure that you're seeing right here on the camera. So what we think that is, as an agency, as a marketer, our sole goal here is to figure out how can we maximize inputs so that with the inputs and also the win ratio, so that we're able to almost predict the outputs and also the top line revenue that we get from our new creatives that we launch. So that leads to our structure here. So we've played around with CBO with a lot of accounts in terms of just running them as evergreen or BAU campaigns, but now we're actually leveraging it for creative testing campaigns. And this is where the exciting part comes. We've had a new client essentially in the apparel niche. They are launching a large amount of content and creative every month. Essentially, we're launching over 100 ads, and these are a combination of net new concepts and also iterations. So when you're launching a large amount of creative, and this can vary from brand to brand. Again, this is not like a silver bullet. This is something that just works really well for us right now. When you're launching a large amount of creative, is you need to figure out how you can limit the cost of this new creative that you're going to be launching. Essentially, every brand that launches new creative, less than 10% of it is going to be a winning creative. And you need to figure out how much of that winning creative is going to generate and make up for that, essentially that loss that you end up running if you're running like an APO campaign, for example, unless you've got cost caps on it. So that's why CBOs work so much better for us, is that we can essentially either set a minimum spend budget on these ad sets, or we can just let it run as is. And we essentially have just one CBO campaign. It can have like, whatever the budget is, $1,000 a day in testing. And then you have different ad sets with different angles. So for example, we have a value one, efficacy, versatility, whatever it may be. And then inside of that, we've got 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 ads. And these are all different hooks, different variations, whatever it may be. And the sole goal is to figure out what angle is really working with every new test that we launch. Now, what we're finding is that we're able to just launch more content into these campaigns, and we let it run for a certain amount of time. So what we consider a winning campaign is, or a winning ad, is if it generates at least 50 conversions. This doesn't really matter on a time window. Usually people like to generate 50 conversions on a 7-day time window. We like to just generate 50 conversions at a certain target CPA that we have, and then we have full confidence in the system that, okay, great, we can essentially graduate this into another campaign, which is like our evergreen or a BAU campaign that we're always running at a much higher budget. Based off of this new structure and campaign setup, we're able to launch large amount of creative and not worry about too much of the sunken costs that we would have if we had to guarantee spend for each creative. The reason being is that sunken costs could essentially drop overall CPA in the account, and that makes it harder to reach profitability goals or even top line revenue goals, because you have spend going towards ads that you're just testing it for the sake of it, but you might not know if it's going to actually work or not. So having it in this campaign, you are essentially trusting the algorithm and you're trusting Meta. Even though it's not perfect, it provides, I would say, 80% accuracy in majority of its tests. So that gives me enough confidence as a marketer to be like, okay, great, go ahead and run it as the budget. Me as a marketer and media buyer, I have to spend less time on the account because I'm letting the algorithm and letting the account do a lot of the managing itself. And I focus solely on the things that really matter, which is coming up with new concepts for creatives, coming up with new offers, and also landing page experiences. So for this example in particular, we can see that, efficacy seems to be standing out in terms of the top performing concept. And then that would tell me as a strategist and also our creative strategy team that, okay, cool, let's focus our next round around efficacy and how we can build more concepts around this particular angle. So it could be new creators, it could be new visuals, it could be statics, whatever it may be. But our next round of testing essentially would come how we can best demonstrate this particular concept or angle, however you take it. And then, yeah, just reiterating, focusing on the inputs, the creatives, office, and landing pages, rather than tinkering so much in the account to the point that you might not you're not sure what change you would have made, which caused a decrease in performance. So having a guaranteed budget and also a guaranteed structure where it's simply plug and play seems much more manageable and controllable to me as a buyer, and also allows me to grow brands fast and also grow it more in a structured approach rather than having thousands of ad sets everywhere with different budgets and turning things off, turning it off, making sure we're pacing right for the month. So I would strongly recommend this. Again, every brand is different. If ABO really works for you, then that's great. You guys have a great structure in your brand. If not, try CBO. It's a really good option to diversify your creatives inside the account, as well as keep a sane mind when you're growing the account.